What's up guys, Mitch from the DIYRecordingStudio.com, and today I'm going to be showing you guys how I approach mixing with analog hardware. It's going to be an awesome one, so let's get into it. So recently I was sent a bunch of great hardware from a company called Z&H Designs, which I've featured on this channel. And I've done some unboxings and some previews and some deep dive demos. But what I'm going to do today is show how I approach mixing using these two EQs. And the two EQs are the V250 mastering grade EQs, which are based on the Sontecs. And these ones over here are the V560s, which are based on the famous API 560 EQs. Everyone should be familiar with those. So I'm going to take you through how I use them on a mix through a bunch of different applications. And today, first up, we're going to start with drums. So I've got my drums here. I've got a track that I've been working on, an original piece. So basically everything is unprocessed, everything's raw at the moment. There's no mixing that's gone on, it's just been tracked in, and already we've got like a pretty decent sound, but we're going to use these EQs today to really shape and hone in the sound using analog stuff. And the first thing I do is put some gating on. And that goes a long way to cleaning up the kick and snare. And then what I can do is start working on the EQ. So gate first, then some EQ. The reason why I have this going to a kick bus and a snare bus is usually I'll have more than one mic and I process them together. But for today, I'm just going to be doing it the same way, just on the bus. Cool. And what we're going to do is make that kick really pop out in the mix. You can hear it's getting a bit lost there. So let's jump over to our hardware. Straight away we can hear that presence coming through more. You can really push that kind of 8K region with these EQs. 4 gets a bit basketball-y. Let's just start flat, eh? Got that attack, and we want to get rid of these like honky frequencies in the mids, and we can really push up some weight if we want as well. So on, it's night and day difference there. And you can very much hear in that verse in particular how much more that kick really stands out in the mix. The V560 really shapes the kick drum in this amazing way that you've heard on records before. That's what this EQ is for. It's amazing on drums, especially kick and snare, but yeah, let's keep going. So let's go on to the snare now. Now I used to like to put in a bit of 2K. Bit of 8 if we need more top, bit of 4 off. Then we'll tighten up the lows. You can add a bit of 250 for that fatness, and then it's just whether you want the ring or not. You can really hear how far those EQs are going to shape the sound of the kick and snare. Like without them, they just do not cut the same way through the mix. They're an excellent shaping device and tonal shaper for kick and snare. But what they really do as well is add other analog things like saturation, because they're running through an op-amp stage and a transformer as well. So that's kind of what you're hearing there. What we can do then is do some further processing, like adding some compression. And my favorite drum compressors are usually distressors. And I would do something like this. And what I'll do is actually turn off the EQs going into those compressors so you can hear what that sounds like as well. They're just going a really long way to tonally shaping, and you can really push those high frequencies without them sounding messed up and harsh, and the lows stay really tight and don't get muddy in the way I find plugins sometimes can. Very cool. Let's go to our overheads and see what we can do there with the V250s. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to put them each in mono and then EQ them. Maybe we want to bring a bit of the cymbals out, cut out some of the mud, and go from there. Bring out the snare with the 4K kind of range. Oh, that honk. Let's get rid of that. That's nice. All right, let's duplicate it on the other side. Let's see where we're at. Yeah. Whoa. Go. So just with kick, snare and overheads. We're getting such a great picture of the drums with the kick, snare and overheads here. sounding very tight. Once everything else is added in, the picture of the drums is really becoming more detailed and finessed with the help of both those pairs of EQs. And then here, because of the overheads, we're getting a bit more snap from the snare because we've brightened them up, but we've cleared out some of the mud that we're getting from the cymbals. So the cymbals sound way cleaner and crisper because we've cut some of those low mids, and then we focused the kick and snare again in the overheads, and we're just getting this really tight, punchy, crisp sounding drum kit just from kick, snare, and overheads now. It's quite cool. Let's see how they cut through in the denser part of the track where we've got all the heavier guitars. So already kick, snare, overheads sounding great. So what I'm gonna do now is print them in, and then what we'll do is the remaining mics. So we've got hi-hats, toms, and the room mic, and we'll get them tight, and then that'll be our drums for today. So I've bounced those tracks, and you can see them sitting in the mix here. They're in the mix, and they're sounding pretty good. Cool. Now what we're going to do, we'll start with hats. Cut one of those lows out. So just keep a little bit of it in there just for that extra detail. And then we'll go over to the room. Same as the overheads, there's a bit of mud in that kind of low mid. So that's really tidying up that on the dining mic here. It kind of sounds cool like as it was, but it tightens it up in the mix a lot once it's on. Becomes overwhelming. Now it sounds like this really nice, clean kind of reverb. Anyway, so that's tightened that up a lot. And now I can really control how much of that's in the mix. And if I want it to be really bombastic still, I could do that by turning this up, adding some compression maybe. But it's sounding pretty good as it is, pretty tight, snappy. And when I take that room away, you'll hear how much the room is adding to that mix there. And that room mic was just out in my dining room. It's kind of my go-to spot for it. It sounds excellent. So the doors in my studio are slightly open to let some of the drums spill out into that dining room area that I have. And I just put a mic in there and it sounds massive. Last but not least, let's get some EQ on our toms. And I've got like a rough gate on them at the moment. So get rid of these mids. Add some weight. Some tops. Off. That's what it was. Yeah, now we're cooking. Let's get the other tom going. That weight again, some attack. There we go. Off. On. Off. On. Night and day difference there. So let's listen to this now with all those EQs off. All right, so that's the drums done for that section of the song. So we've bounced out all of our individual tracks like kick, snare, hats, overheads, toms, and that room mic. And we've got a much more complete sounding drum, mix going on just with those two different pairs of EQs. I did have a little bit of compression on the kick and snare, but that was it really. So have another listen. So we've got all those individual tracks that have been processed and bounced out, but we've still got the actual drum bus. Now, the drum bus I would usually put some compression on, but I'd also usually apply some EQ. And the V560s really shine on things like drum bus or other stereo instruments, because what they can do, and you'll hear this in a minute, is because of the way their circuitry works and the op amps and stuff, they can actually add width. That's something that's very synonymous with API style EQs and the API 2500 compressor. And the reason is because of all those components, they kind of have slightly different tolerances, and then we get difference in phase and frequency, and then that creates a sense of widening. Just have a listen. I'm going to put these in the circuit. We've got the drums just a little bit tighter, a little bit more snap, and a little bit more attack in the bottom end as well with that extra little bus EQ. But a drum bus is nothing without compression added. So what we can do is add something like the API 2500 style EQ in conjunction with those op-amp transformer EQ output stages and get all of that kind of sitting together really nicely. Let's check what that sounds like. So you can see how these analog EQs go a long way into shaping the overall sound of the drums. And what you should also notice now is that in the context of the mix, not only do the drums stand out, but there's more space for things like the mid-range of the bass guitar. And we hear the guitars more fully, and we can hear where those now need to be shaped as well to finish off the mix. Now, if you want to see more analog mixing with these EQs, I'll have a second video for you real soon showing the V560s on bass and guitars, and then also we'll put the V250s across the whole mix, and I'll show how that sounds as well. And we'll have a comparison at the end to look at the original tracks versus the new one and hear that difference in its entirety. And I'm sure we'll all be surprised at the final result. I'm always impressed with how good these EQs are, and I just want to give a thanks to Z&H Designs for sending them my way. I've had a lot of time to really experiment with these EQs and see what they're great at, and they've been on all of my mixes and recordings with all the awesome bands that I've had in the studio over the last sort of 6 months or so. If you want more information on the Z&H Designs hardware, you can either email me at mitch@thediyrecordingstudio.com, or you can reach out to Z&H Designs as well. I'll put a link to their website down below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. I'm Mitch from the DIYRecordingstudio.com. I'll catch you soon.